Hey everyone, welcome to this edition of the Animated Girl Profile Confidentials. And with the fact that the movie itself comes out in 2016, I thought I'd look at an animated girl originally created as a comic book girl and was one of the, if not the, first female superheroes. Of course, I'm talking about the one and only Wonder Woman. Of course, you can see who it is right there. Now, I can't say exactly what year she was created, but I know it was around the 40s and around the 30s and 40s. Around the 30s and the 40s. She was one of the first major superheroes by DC Comics. DC Comics, known at the time as I think National Comics, or I can't think of it. I think they were National Comics at the time. I know they weren't Timely Comics. That was Marvel. National Comics was what DC used to be known as. Well, anyway, Wonder Woman was created around that same time period. Thus, the reason why a lot of people call her, Superman, and Batman the DC Trinity. The Trinity basically being the first three. And of course, being part of that Trinity, it really helped establish her. Now, throughout the decades, Wonder Woman has had her ups and downs, just like any superhero or superheroine. You know, she has had her ups and downs. And we're not just talking from an in-story standpoint. Because just like with Superman and Batman, when they first arrived on the scene, her stories were just, cut and dry. It was fight the bad guy, save the day, keep your identity a secret. But as the decades went on, Wonder Woman, of course, through her various creators, various retcons and reboots, really had more character given to her than one could expect. She was given more character depth. She was given more of a background, more of an origin than we ever thought she would have. I mean, basically those that had worked on Wonder Woman many times had basically given her more of something that would, really gain people's interest. It would really get them to want to read these Wonder Woman comics, or the Justice League comics. Now, like I said, just like with any of the superheroes, not just through DC, but Marvel and all in general, all around, when you got into like the 50s and the 60s and 70s, superheroes were not that big of a deal anymore. I mean, true, you had just Saturday morning cartoons and stuff and even some live action shows that tried to keep them relevant, but it just wasn't enough. It just was not enough. And it wasn't until the late 70s when things like the Superman movies, in my opinion, opened the door for superheroes to have sort of a resurgence in popularity, which is why you had the Wonder Woman TV series, and you had TV series like the Incredible Hulk, the short-lived Spider-Man series, and so on. You had all these due to that small resurgence back in the early 80s. But, of course, that too ended up dying off for a while, and superheroes were not that big of a deal anymore. The resurgence of the superheroes in the late 70s and all that came about because of, Saturday morning cartoons as well. You didn't just have the live action shows, you had the Saturday morning cartoons. You had the Super Friends, the Challenges Super Friends. You had all these different shows. And people liked them. Kids watched them, and I'm pretty sure their parents did too, every Saturday morning. So, again, and that lasted, I think, that series of DC cartoons, basically taking place year after year, one after the other, lasted until about the mid-80s. Which is when the superhero craze was starting to die down just a little bit. And it wouldn't be a resurgence or a peak of interest in it until about the late till about the late 80s, 90s, thanks to Tim Burton's Batman. Now, Wonder Woman didn't get that much of a resurgence, if you will, out of any of this until we got into the DC animated universe. Now, she wouldn't arrive officially, she wouldn't re-debut, I should say, she wouldn't re-debut officially into animated form until I think we got to the Justice League down the line. Now, I'm not sure if she guest starred in one of the New Adventures, one of the Superman animated series episodes. I don't know if she did or not. I know a variety of superheroes did. I'm not sure if she did. But she was basically one of the founding members of the Justice League in the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited cartoons, and was a focal point at most times. Now, of course, just like with any superhero back in the 60s and even the 70s and up to the 80s, she did sort of have a sidekick in Wonder Girl. And Wonder Girl went on to be part of the Teen Titans, while Wonder Woman, was part of the Justice League. But again, even with the resurgence in the 90s and even the early 2000s of superheroes, in the early 2000s thanks to Marvel of all things doing it, as well as in the mid to late 2000s, not just thanks to Marvel, but thanks to DC's direct-to-video animated movies, interest in the characters were getting more popular, interest in the characters were getting more and more popular. Now, even throughout all that, the comics were still selling off the shelves like hotcakes. Don't get me wrong. But there was always that one thing that was like, what could they do to boost sales, especially when it came to something like, let's say, Wonder Woman maybe, which was still one of the biggest sellers. Well, quite frankly, what they had to do was do something that would get people's attention. Yeah, like I said, they would have to do something that they would have to do something to get people's attention. You know, of course, she got some of the spotlight. She shared some of the spotlight in the Death of Superman storyline. Of course, she shared that. And of course, it kind of continued on into her own comics as well, the aftermath of what happened in that storyline. But still, it was like, what else could they do? And then, like, when DC decided to start doing the animated features, it was like, here was the answer. You know, here was the answer. Do an animated feature based on the character. I mean, you had already done a Superman one. So what character should be next? Well, obviously Batman was in the works, but they didn't have they didn't have the Batman story at that time that they wanted prepared to be seen. So insert Wonder Woman, who actually became the second, as far as I know, DC direct-to-video animated feature, and did very well. And like I said, did very well for itself, which not many people can say about something like it. And it was through that movie, the Superman Doomsday movie, and then the following Batman movies, that we finally got a Justice League movie. And now, you know, her comics are selling well enough. DC, you know, Warner Brothers and DC are trying their best to compete with Marvel. So now, through all this, you have Marvel and DC, well, not DC, but you have Warner Brothers and DC putting out their own list of movies that they're going to be bringing out in the next few years. And Wonder Woman is on the slate for a 2017 release, but she'll be making her official live-action, on-screen, big-screen debut in the Batman vs. Superman movie. And quite honestly, it shows you that fans have been wanting this for a long time. I mean, Zack Snyder didn't have to add Wonder Woman. He could have just left it as Batman vs. Superman, but he wanted to add it to start the beginning of the hopefully will be a successful DC cinematic universe. DC Comics cinematic universe, but it all depends on how well they do the movie, and how well they make the movie, and how well things go. But I'll tell you this about Wonder Woman. If you play certain games that allow you to create characters, she is one of the most created characters I know of, especially in the WWE games. She is. And if you look at little girls or women dressing up as characters or cosplaying as characters at convention or for Halloween, she's one of the most cosplayed characters out there. And that's a fact. So that's all I'm going to say on Wonder Woman on this edition of the Animated Girl Profiles Confidential.